Hey guys, how's it going? Welcome to another video. Bit of a blustery summer's day today. There's also a whopping great black cloud over there that potentially might leak some precipitation over me in a minute, but if it does, no worries, I've got all my kit to be prepared for that. And that's what we're talking about today, is outdoor gear, specifically what to take when you're heading out for a day hike. So this is not including anything where you would intentionally want to be staying somewhere overnight. Keyword, intentionally. We'll be breaking that down as we go through this video. So what I want to do is have a nice big discussion. There's no real structure to this. I'm just going to be taking stuff out of my pack and talking about why I would encourage you to carry it. This again isn't even about the specific piece of equipment, the brand so to speak. It's just about having the equivalent in your own backpack so that you've got those key essentials that you need when you're out and about on the trail. So you might be new to the world of hiking. Perhaps you're wanting to sort of, reach that 5k 10k mark, maybe you're out and about for see some wildlife, you just want to get your fitness up, you want to have some nice clear mental space, whatever reason that you're out and about in the natural world. Hopefully by having this equipment with you, it's going to keep you safe, it's going to enhance the enjoyment of your experience, and hopefully it'll also just be able to aid your transition if ever you're looking to go into overnight staying somewhere like camping or backpacking. So let's get started. First of all then, before we even look at the stuff inside the backpack, we need something to hold it. Yes, the backpack. So with regards to a day hiking, there's different routes you can go here. Now you could just take your old school backpack and just head out for a hike with that. No issues whatsoever. If it's comfortable, great. But if you're wanting to do bigger mileages, it can be quite useful to have a hip belt. So basically this is a belt that comes around your hips, it clips together, and it just helps to shift some of the weight off of your shoulders onto your torso. So obviously we've got all these big muscles in our upper body, and we just want to try and balance that out as much as possible. Now with regards to the size of the pack that you might be wanting, if you're literally just like a fair weather walker, you're doing shortish days out and about in the nice sunny weather, then you probably want to sort of sit around 15 to 20 litres in terms of size of the backpack. However, if you're wanting something that you can use sort of all year round, so you can have your winter equipment in as well, then 38 to sort of 40 is kind of the bigger size that I would suggest you go with regards to an all-round backpack. You can buy these anywhere. You can buy them online. Obviously you can buy them in lots of outdoor stores, but with whatever backpack you get, always try before you buy. Just make sure it sits nice and comfortably on your body. Can't get my words out today. And it's quite nice just to have a chat with the people there, because they can help to make sure everything's fitted properly. They can be a little bit complicated, but once you've got the right pack, you will absolutely know, and it'll feel like a part of you basically, regardless of how much weight is in it. So for me personally, when I'm out and about doing day hikes, I use my Osprey Talon. So this is great because it's got lots of stretchy compartments. I can shove everything in. I've been using this for multiple years now. I've got all my little trinklets and stuff on it. This is just a second piece of me basically. So finding the right backpack is obviously a crucial place to start. Make sure it's comfortable, make sure it breathes well, make sure it's the right size for everything that you're going to want to be carrying. So just considering those things, head into a local store and make sure you can tick that box. So we have a backpack, happy days. What do we put in it? That's the question, and that's what we're hoping to answer. So I'm going to start by taking everything out. I'm going to work from the top to the bottom, and we'll have a discussion about everything. So for me, in my top pocket, I keep things that I really need accessible nice and quickly. So first thing that whips out is my first aid kit. So this is a personalised first aid kit. I've made this myself. I've got sort of blister treatment in there. I've got personal medication, paracetamol, ibuprofen. I've got some bandages and all sorts of different stuff in here. What I've also got in the bottom, I'll get it out to show you actually, is I just have a nice foil blanket. So if ever I came upon somebody who needed, I don't know, a little bit of extra insulation, they'd had an injury and you just need to keep them off the ground, then I would use a sort of foil blanket for that. So you can get all different kinds of sort of emergency blankets. You can get emergency bivvies, emergency shelters, but if I'm just out and about in low level walking, sort of just hoping to be out for the day, then this is what I'll carry as a sort of emergency backup thing. And again, just different dressings and stuff in there. So that's my first aid kit. I add things and take away things depending on how far I'm going to be walking and the different terrains that I'm going to be walking in, but this is always accessible. So first aid kit is your first must when it comes to heading out for a day walk. And actually, just a little side note with that, when you're packing things like your first aid kit, and you'll see with the different things that I pack as well, I'm not always thinking about myself. So I do lead different groups out and about around the country, but even if I'm just out walking on my own, I'm making a film, I'm doing whatever, I will always have equipment to make sure if I find somebody who is in distress or who needs help, that I can help them. So this first aid kit isn't just geared up for me, it's got spares of most things, and I still managed to keep it quite light. That's definitely a kilogram at most, really. But it means that if I find somebody, I can help them. You know, I'm very passionate about this outdoor community, and I like to make sure that I'm playing my part in that community, essentially. So just be considerate with your first aid kit if you're putting it together yourself. But if you're not, no worries. Again, head into your local outdoor store. You can get all sorts of different first aid kits. Just make sure you know how to use everything within it. Really, really important. So that's the first aid kit. So next up I have a slight extension from that. This is stuff I just keep out from that, just because I need it accessible even more quickly. So a little plastic bag, always good. So I've got some sun cream here. This isn't actually what it says, I just fill it up all the time. It's a nice little bottle. So I've got some sun cream, especially if you're walking in the summer. Obviously in the winter that's probably less vital. So again, just, you know, take some notes from this. You're not going to need all of this all the time, but we're just having a good discussion. So you've got some sun cream there. I've got some hand gel, so I always have hand gel on me if I need an emergency toilet trip, then that's just nice to have, really. I've got some insect bite stuff. Oh, that split. Well, I have some insect bite stuff, whatever's left of it. So we're walking in the summer season at the moment. There's lots of different bugs and stinging nettles and stuff out. So if ever I needed to treat something that was particularly irritable, then I'll just put some of that on it. I also have some Vaseline. So this isn't so much for my lips, this is more for my feet. If I ever need to sort of rub it on a friction point where perhaps I feel like I'm getting a blister, it's just quite nice to have that on there before I start slapping plasters and things on, just to try and save them as much as possible. So I tend to start with Vaseline. And then I also have some ibuprofen gel. So not everybody will need this, but this is my personal kit, so I'm just showing how you can personalize your outdoor equipment. I have an injury in my upper back. Very, very rarely will I need to use this because I'd much rather just take the pain. But if ever I've got, you know, I need to perform for whatever reason, ibuprofen gel just for that. And then these plastic bags are just really helpful to put phones in, equipment, whatever. If it starts to rain or drizzle, it's just another added layer of protection. You'll see we've got lots of different protective layers we'll be talking about. And final thing here, just to mention, I've got my little Leatherman squirt. So I like to keep that on me just if I need to, you know, fiddle with anything, do some camera stuff, then I've got my Leatherman there, which is all good. So that just sits nicely in that bag. Notice how everything as we go through here is organized. It means I can get to everything quickly regardless of where it is in the layering system as I pack my backpack. Up next, wallet. This tends to float around really, top, bottom, wherever it goes, but this is absolutely an essential because if you find a cafe or a pub, you got to stop. So there's your wallet anyway. Of course that's got my ID in as well if anything was to happen to me. My keys are attached there, so if I need to get in the house or into a car, then that's those there. Another spare plastic bag, and I've got some tissues in there as well. Now tissues, just make sure if you are using tissues, just make sure they don't blow away. No one wants to see your snotty tissues on the trail, so just keep an eye out for them. So then inside of the pack I have this this upper pocket, this inside pocket, there we go, on the rucksack. So in here I keep my head torch. I don't always keep it in this pouch, but it's nice when I'm not moving about. So why do you need a head torch if you're not staying anywhere overnight, Abbie? Well, basically, as you'll see with some of this equipment, you know, first aid kit, we've got that emergency blanket there. We need to make sure we have some stuff so that if we do get caught out in the dark, if we get lost and everything takes longer than we expected, then we can make sure we can still navigate and we're still safe. So head torches are a really great little thing. You can get really light head torches as well. So just make sure you get a head torch, make sure those batteries are charged, and just keep that in your backpack. Even if you never touch it, always helpful to have a head torch. And that's all I've got in that underside pocket there. So heading on to the front pocket, this will probably be in my hand. So just an example of a map. This is an OS map. This is Dartmoor because I was there yesterday. Just making sure you've got a map. Make sure you know how to read your map. It can be very tempting to use solely your electronic gadgets. So you might have a GPS thing, you might have a GPS on your phone, whatever it is. And I think they're great. I absolutely love technology. I think it's super helpful. It's definitely worth embracing it. But I would absolutely always, hand on heart, say it is not a substitute for the skill and the knowledge to be able to use a map and a compass. So if for whatever reason your technology fails, you can always come back to the hard stuff. Hard as in physical. So just make sure you've got a map on you, even if it's literally just a printout of the area that you're going, so that if something happens to your technology, then you can use your map. So there's your map. You might also have a guidebook if you're following a guidebook, but just make sure you've got something legible to show you where you're going. And not everybody's a fan of these. I sort of have a bit of a love-hate relationship with them, but this is a lightweight map case, so if you are out in some pretty torrential weather, then you can keep your map dry, because not all of these OS maps are waterproof. There's the active type, which is slightly more expensive, that have a sort of laminate finish, but the rest of them, the original ones, are paper, so having a map case can be quite helpful. So there's your navigation stuff. We'll talk about compasses in a minute. Up next then, again, just nice and kept together, plastic bag. What have I got in here? Some goodies. So I have a woolly hat. So even if it's summer, I will always carry a woolly hat, because if I or someone has an incident, they get cold, then that's just going to help aid the insulation. Fastest place to lose our heat is in our head and our feet, so having a hat can be really helpful. Or again, if something goes wrong and I'm out later and it's cold in the night, I've got a hat there. I've got 2 pairs of gloves, really lightweight. These are fingerless, so I always use these. My family struggle with circulation anyway, so having gloves can just be really helpful. So I've got fingerless, and then I've got full finger gloves, really light, so I'll always have the fingerless on me. If I'm feeling like I want to carry a bit more, then I'll have the full finger gloves there. But again, sort of thinking about the seasons that you're going to be walking in, you know, are you going to be out quite late, or is there a wind chill, or are you going slightly higher up? Having those gloves is just going to help to, again, retain the heat. It's going to help your fingers to work. What we don't want is tiredness. We don't want our body to be getting cold, because then we'll make navigational mistakes, and that's when accidents can happen. So just making sure you've got all sorts of different things to look after yourself and make sure you stay comfortable regardless of what the elements are doing. So I've got some gloves there. And then I've got a buff or a neck gaiter. So again, this can just add a nice little bit of insulation there. If it's a windy day, I can bring it up over my mouth. Just really nice to have. Also, if it's a hot day, you can just wipe your brow with it, use it as a handkerchief or whatever. So having a nice neck gaiter there can be helpful. And lastly, again, depends on the weather and where I'm walking, but having ankle gaiters, these are ridiculously light. It doesn't matter just having these in my pack all the time. I prefer ankle gaiters because I just find them uncomfortable coming all the way up my shin. But these are useful if I'm walking early in the morning and there's dew on the grass and I want to sort of keep things a bit drier. If I'm walking for a boggier section, then that's just going to help prevent water getting into my boots. So it's just prolonging the life of your equipment, and again, making sure you're comfortable in the environments that you're working through. So that's just the stuff I keep there in a plastic bag. If, for example, you're walking in really wet, wintry weather, you might also want to have some spare socks or something in there as well, just because then you can look after your feet, and after all, it's your feet that are carrying you, so they are an absolute priority. And then the last thing I have in the front of my rucksack here, this is an extra add-on to this rucksack, so it's a waterproof cover, so it goes over the top of the rucksack and basically just helps to keep things a little bit drier. Again, not everybody's a fan of these, and I sort of go through phases with them, but they are quite helpful just to, again, look after your rucksack. And the nice thing about this one, actually, when you're buying, if you need to buy an extra waterproof cover, here's a little side tip. Get one that basically, so it sits on the front, obviously, but some of them, like this one, have a clip, so it comes around the back and it will clip up here, so it's not going to blow off regardless of how windy it is, because that's one of the reasons why people don't like waterproof covers, is they tend to blow away. So just get one that's got that extra security feature, and that's going to make sure it stays on your pack. And again, you could attach this to your rucksack with a carabiner or something, and that way it's not going to accidentally fall out. So that's everything there I would keep in my front pocket. I might also keep some snacks in there that I need accessible, but it's quite helpful having that front pocket. Obviously not every backpack has it, so just find your own packing system and figure out what works for you. So into the main compartment then. First things I have got that are accessible are my waterproofs. If it's a rainy day, or you know, it's showery and it's quite warm, I'm going to be taking my waterproofs on and off because I don't want to sweat too much, don't want to get that horrible clammy feeling, but they are indeed accessible straight away. So I've got a waterproof jacket here, and I've got some waterproof trousers. Now obviously, if you're literally just doing a day walk and you've seen that the forecast is 29 degrees, glorious sunshine, 0% rain, you're really not going to need your waterproof trousers, unless of course it's really windy and they can just add a nice little layer of extra protection. But I would always encourage you to have a waterproof jacket, again, because you just never know what the weather's going to do. If you're in the mountains or in the coast, it can change quite quickly. You know, it might still be 100% sunshine, but you might get some mist that comes in, or a little bit of a patch of a lower cloud, and that's just cooling for your skin. So just making sure you've got that protection, and maybe not even for you, maybe for someone else on the trail, then waterproofs are obviously really helpful to have. Excuse me. Up next, very important, I've just got a selection of snackage. So what you want to think about when you're on the trail is stuff that's going to fuel you. So it's got the right carbohydrates, proteins and fats. So you need to make sure you've got enough energy to obviously complete your walk, to keep your brain functioning well, to keep your body functioning well, and just make sure you're feeling happy and full, but not over full. So I pretty much always have some kind of fruit on me. Bananas are a go-to, and then I tend to have oranges or something. They've got just nice hydration feature to them. Sun's coming out, look at this. Then I've got a selection of cereal bars, so find what works for you. I tend to like the raw fruit ones, just, you know, dates and cashews. Just know I'm getting something more nutritionally beneficial for my body as well. And then other things you might want to go for, kind of classics, is trail mix. This is my mother's. I don't normally buy things in single-use plastics, but you can make your own trail mix. You know, if there's certain nuts you do and don't like, then mix it up, get some berries in there, get some dried fruits in there, get some seeds in there, and again, just make something that appeals to you and that you enjoy eating. So that's the food. Okay, so all I've got here then in the rest of the center of my pack is some insulating layers. So again, this is a discussion point. So what I've got here is a lightweight thermal over jacket. So what's the word? Pull on, there we go, that's what I was looking for. So that's what that is. And then I've got a slightly thicker jacket here. So this is my Patagonia Nano. I absolutely love this jacket. Again, really light, it's quite bulky, but a really great insulating jacket. So depending on, again, the season that you're walking in, you're going to need different layers of insulation. Be aware of that wind chill factor. Be aware of other people in your walking party. But get comfortable with different equipment you've got. Just make sure you're avoiding things like cotton and down as well. If down gets wet, it's obviously super light, but if you're walking in really wet conditions, you're not going to be walking with down, because if that gets wet, then it loses its insulation properties. So just finding the insulation equipment that works for you, and just make sure you've got different layers there. So just to have a quick chat about layering, when you're out and about on the trail, what you don't want is like a t-shirt and then a big puffy jacket, because if you get hot, then you're going to be cold in just a t-shirt. Does that make sense? So by having a layering system, so different layers, so your t-shirt, then your first layer, then your second layer, then your third layer, it means you can take things on and put things off as you need to maintain a nice stable body temperature. So that's just a quick discussion about layering there. Just make sure you pack in enough layers to make sure you stay warm and stay comfortable in the environment. And again, it's better to err on the side of caution, especially if the equipment's not too heavy, and take more than you think you might need, especially when you're starting out and you're still trying to figure out what really works for you. So that's your layering system there. Coming around to the side of the packs then, we've talked about nutrition, let's talk about hydration. So if you're walking in winter, it can be quite nice to have a flask of something warm, just to sip on that to keep that body temperature up, especially if you're walking quite slowly. So it's just a day walk, it's really not going to matter carrying a flask, so having something warm can be really nice and comforting. And then of course we've got liquids, water, super important to keep our body hydrated, keep our brain functioning properly. If you struggle with water, just because it's just not very nice to drink for you, whatever reason, it can be quite nice to put some lemons or some mint leaves in there just to make it a bit nicer to drink. You can also get like high 5 electrolyte tablets, which can be quite nice. There's no harm in drinking them, even if you're not sweating buckets. So you just basically pop one in a litre and it fizzes away and dissolves and make it taste nice, and you know you're getting some electrolytes in there as well. You could use plastic bottles or you could use a metal flask. I generally tend to go for metal because in hotter weather, plastic is renowned to have the plastic sort of leach out into the water, so I just like going metal. And they're just what I've always used, but here's a plastic bottle as an example. We've all seen a plastic bottle before. So just make sure you're staying hydrated. You could also use a water bladder, so they tend to slot in the back of your backpack, and you've got a little pipe and you can sip on your pipe as you're walking along, and that's just going to help make sure you stay hydrated. But do just keep an eye on the level of them, because they tend to empty quicker than you expect, so don't get caught short with your water. And the final few things then, so what I've got here is my phone. We pretty much always have a phone on us, but not all of us can or know how to use these as navigational tools. So most of us have used Google Maps at some point, but some apps you might want to download things like View Ranger or the OS maps. So these can be really useful as a sort of GPS tool, and even if you don't want to navigate via these, like me, if you much prefer the map and compass, they're still quite nice to have as a backup, because you can download the maps for offline use when you've got Wi-Fi, and then basically you can say GPS and it will show you where you are on the map. You can zoom in and then you can locate that on your actual physical hard map. So they can be a really great tool just as a sort of safety feature. The other thing these can obviously be used for is emergency contact. So even if you don't want to use your phone because you want a techless day, making sure you've got a phone, because if something happens then you can contact people. You stop it, store it in the bottom of your bag, whatever, but if something happens you've got access to people. Now the only other thing to consider with these is they're not faultless. Places like Exmoor, Lake District, there's different areas where there's no signal. That means there is no network provider that has any coverage. Very often those are the places I'm in. So it's basically a 0 with a cross. There is no signal. So of course, even if something happens, you can't ring the emergency services. What do? Well, this is where it's really important when you're out and about, even if you're just going like round a National Trust property or something, if it's a little bit more remote and you think there's not going to be any signal, make sure somebody knows where you're going and your your ETA in terms of arrival back home or back to the car or back where people can expect to see you. And that way, if something goes wrong, if you don't turn up, then they know, okay, they said they were going to this part at this time, let's go have a look there. Does that make sense? So just make sure obviously you've got your phone, but make sure you leave a note with somebody as well. And the other thing, of course, these are great for is cameras. So you can either take a physical camera, maybe you want a DSLR or you've got a bridge camera, or you can just use your phone. Most phone cameras are really good these days. I film on mine as well as take photos. So that's the electronic side of things there, just to have a quick chat about. Other thing I've got in here, just some lip salve, kind of helpful if it's a sunny day or if it's a windy day or if it's a cold day, just to help, again, look after your body and prevent any chappage there. And the final things, super accessible, again, more tissues if I need them, and my compass. So I love having my compass on me. I'd like to just whip it out, be like, which way am I facing? Just always like to have some kind of understanding of where I am. So just having a compass, really helpful. Again, make sure you know how to use it. And if you don't know how to use it, don't worry. Whilst there's loads of great videos on YouTube, it really doesn't cost very much to go on like a half day or a full day navigation course. And they're so rewarding. Even those of us, who know navigation, it's so nice to go out and navigate with other people, and they'll teach you things like obviously how to read a map, how to sort of locate yourself, different pacings and timings and emergency navigation and all of that sort of stuff. And it's fascinating, and it's really nice then when you're out and about on the trail to get a full understanding of where you are and feel comfortable in reading the landscape. So I would always encourage you to have a look at a navigation course. And the same with your first aid. Most of us have done first aid at work, but there's an outdoor first aid qualification that some of us have to have and some of us want to do. And again, it's a 2-day course, really interesting. It looks at all sorts of things. If you come across a climber who's fallen down from a cliff, how can you assess their neck and their spine? And just immersing yourself in this environment, if this is something you really want to sort of build your skills and knowledge on. Other thing that can be helpful is just having an actual physical watch. So we've got a phone obviously to tell the time, but if your phone fails for whatever reason, you've got a watch. And again, this can just help you sort of see how fast you're moving. It can help with your navigation, all sorts of things. Watches are great, but having a watch obviously. And then basically, I think, I'll refresh myself in a minute, the final thing I want to talk about is a stickage. So walking sticks. So not everybody likes these, not everybody needs these, but walking sticks can be a really great aid if you've got sort of sore joints, your knees, or if you want to keep your posture nice and tall, you need a bit of help with balance. Walking sticks can be great. It's just making sure you know how to use these properly, make sure you're handling them well, make sure they're the right height. And some people like 1, some people like 2. But the main thing I would stress with these is obviously make sure you know how to use it properly, but then also make sure you're not over relying on your walking stick as well. These aren't crutches, okay? These are just additional supports to make sure that you're walking well. So, when you're climbing uphill, try not to be leaning into them. Try not to, use them too much for balance. Try to rely on your body. This is what your body's made for. Your body is made for moving, and this is the environment that we're made for. So trust your body, trust your instincts. And the more time you spend outside, the more comfortable you get with that as well. So maybe if you want to start with a stick, no worries, but just, remember that it's there as an additional extra. Your body can do it. Have belief in yourself. For me personally, I just like to use an actual proper stick. This is my stick, my coast to coast stick. It's done many, many miles with me. So if you don't want an actual walking stick, just get a stick and claim it as your own. Pretty obsessed with sticks actually. I have a big collection outside the front of our house, much to my mother's annoyance, but I do like sticks. But this is my main one. Won't you stick? Yes, you will. So that is pretty much it, guys. That's a nice sort of discussion there. We've got everything we need for an emergency situation. We've got everything to make sure we're fueled when we're out and about throughout the day. We're hydrated, we're comfortable in our clothing, comfortable in our equipment. That's a nice big discussion. So I suppose the only thing I could just really quickly finish on, actually a little bit extra, slightly off topic but still relevant, is the actual stuff that you're wearing when you're walking. So we talked about sort of avoiding cotton and down, but again that comes to the clothing that you're wearing when you're working, when you're moving outside. So the issue with cotton is that if it gets wet, it dries very slowly, it tends to cling to your skin and it gets heavy. Now if it's a windy day and the wind blows against that wet cotton, you're going to get what we call wind chill. So it's going to drop your temperature much quicker than if the air was still. So that's the main issue with cotton. It can rub against your skin, causing chafing. It's heavy, and of course it can cool you down much quicker. So if you can, avoid cotton clothing when you're out walking, when you sweat in it. Therefore, if you've got something wicking, if you sweat in it, it's going to sort of evaporate much quicker. It's going to dry out much quicker, and it'll be much, much more comfortable looking after your body, both internally and externally. So try to look for a wicking material, so it's synthetic. If you find it's uncomfortable against your skin, now I know a couple of people that much prefer to wear cotton simply because it's more comfortable. I mean, try to wean yourself off of cotton. So perhaps go with something that's 50% nylon, 50% cotton, or whatever it is, and just try to find that balance and slowly get down the synthetic, because if you're working in winter conditions, wearing cotton is an absolute no-go. That being said, so I've sort of been highlighting my upper body here. Lower body, again, same goes for lower body. Jeans, no, don't walk in jeans. Again, they get wet, they're going to cling to you, not ideal. They're going to rub. Even if you sweat in them, they're just not comfortable, well, they're perfectly breathable, but they're just not really what you want to be moving in to be safe and secure if something happens. Try to find a pair of walking trousers that resonate with you. These vary immensely in price, in shape, in style. So finding something that works. Don't get too stressed out by that minefield of a world. But try things again before you buy. And some people like zip off, for example, so they can wear shorts and long. Some people like to have more pockets than others. Some people like me like to have a sort of robusted area, or reinforced area, sorry. So find something that's comfortable, find something that works, and get out walking in it. You know something works for you if you've done a couple of walks and you've not even thought about what you're wearing because it's so comfortable. Perfect, spot on, that's the ideal situation. So that's your clothing, and then of course boots. So make sure you've got a nice pair of walking socks. Some people like to wear sort of thicker ones and only one pair. Some people like to wear a sort of thinner liner layer and a thicker pair. Again, just experiment with stuff, get comfortable with your own sort of way of using equipment, and then hopefully it will be second nature. And then you've got your boots, so you can either go level or you can go synthetic, but what you want for sort of lower level day walks is a sort of reasonably bendy sole. You could be looking for something with the Vibram logo on, which is the yellow logo that says Vibram, and you just know that's a really decent sole then. Check that the grip is comfortable. Most walking stores have like a little ramp made of rocks that you can walk up. Do just really push into that grip and make sure it's not slipping, make sure it's comfortable. And usually the last thing I would say is get a boot size that's slightly bigger, perhaps half, even a full size bigger than the normal size shoe that you would wear, because your feet swell up when you're walking, especially in the afternoon. So just make sure you've got that space so you can really reduce that chance of getting blisters from friction. So that's a quick run through there of a buying guide for outdoor trousers, tops and boots. So obviously that was not in depth, and if you've got any more questions then please pop it in the comments below. But I think I'm just going to conclude it there. So that's a nice sort of detailed discussion just as the sun comes out once again, about different things to take when you're out and about on the trail for a day hike only. So if there's anything you think I've missed out, if there's anything extra that you would take or stuff that you wouldn't take, please leave it in the comments below. Let's get a nice discussion going. Always keep it friendly. We're here to help each other. We are a community of wilders. Let's get that conversation going. So guys, thank you so much for watching today, for listening, for hanging around, for sharing this beautiful time outside with me. It's been a pleasure to share it with you. And until next time, enjoy your adventures and stay wild.